Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Lineup Lab. Tonight I'm just going to talk about really quickly players who had a certain fantasy performance last year and whether I expect them to improve for the rest of the season this year or maybe regress because of situation change. Because a lot of people say, for example, last week all the rhetoric about Odell Beckham Jr. was, hey, this team's different. There's more wide receivers like Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz. He's getting less targets. That's why his fantasy performance is down. But if you actually watched my video last week using these NFLsavant.com free statistics, you would have seen that actually that wasn't really the case, and he was getting the same targets and red zone targets as he always has. And there's a lot of different wide receivers in the NFL who perception might be they're going to do great this year, or maybe they're going to do worse. And I just want to check the real numbers and see what is really accurate about this assessment. So I'll actually just start with Odell Beckham Jr. So if we just look at NFL Savant and we look at passing targets this year, we can see he gets about 28% target share. It's a pretty high number. That's high for an elite wide receiver. That's where the elite wide receivers usually hang out. And in terms of red zone targets, he gets about 33% this year. Now, if we go back to 2015, he got about 24% red zone targets, so a little less actually than this year. And passing targets, he only got 26%. So he actually is getting more passing targets this year and more looks in the red zone. I think that in general we can expect Odell Beckham Jr., who's a young developing player, to have at least a similar year than last year, where he was a huge fantasy threat. I think he was fourth in fantasy points per game. And by the way, I'm just going to clarify, this doesn't work perfectly if the players haven't played a full slate of games, because I'm just saying for the whole season, it counts it up really weirdly. So I'm only really going to use players who've played basically a full amount of games this year specifically, and almost a full amount of games last year. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. only played 15 games, so the numbers are a little off. He probably is about the same as he was last year, but still, definitely not expecting a drop-off in production from Odell Beckham Jr., although, maybe he got lucky last year because 13 touchdowns, only 25 red zone targets is quite a lot, so that could be some luck involved. But yes, I think that in general, if we're looking at these target numbers and we're looking at these red zone numbers, we can really expect him to do about the same. So let's keep moving on to other receivers. AJ Green, he's actually in a completely different situation this year, because last year there's Marvin Jones, there's Tyler Eifert, there's Mohamed Sanu. None of these, Eifert's injured, and Jones and Sanu are not on the team anymore. So let's take a look at his target share from last year and see how it differs from this year. His target share was 27%. Again, a high number that indicates an elite wide receiver. And his red zone target share was 30%. Now let's go to the Bengals stats this year, and we can see his target number is actually a little higher, 29%. So that's definitely an improvement from AJ Green. If we look at red zone targets, he actually is lower at 25%. So he has lost a few red zone targets. That being said, these numbers are going to be a little more high variance, and I think by year's end, he's probably going to be a little over Brandon LaFell. So, interestingly enough, this is a situation where you would have thought, AJ Green is going to benefit a lot. But it looks like while he's benefiting, he's not actually benefiting as much as one would have thought. That being said, given our preconceived notions and just thinking about it, I think the probability that AJ Green's production gets a little better than he's been doing so far this year is probably higher than it dropping off, so we have to take that into consideration too. But it's interesting to see the numbers that he actually hasn't gotten that much more opportunity. Let's look at Doug Baldwin, Seattle Seahawks. He had an amazing year last year. If we look at passing targets, he soaked up about 22%, and red zone targets 26%. So, just FYI, 7 TDs. Obviously, everyone knows Doug Baldwin definitely ran hot last year in the TD department. Having 7 TDs with 27% target share is pretty insane. So, I think he definitely ran hot there. But let's look at 2016. 2016, his target percentage has lowered a bit, and his red zone target percentage is about the same. Now, Jimmy Graham for the first couple of games was injured. And now he's really come on strong. If you look at week 6 numbers, He led the team in passing targets. Week 5, they didn't play, but week 4, he also led the team in passing targets. So if I was to assess the situation, I do think there's definitely some regression for Doug Baldwin. And I think both these target numbers and red zone numbers continue to creep down. Not a surprise, but I don't expect him to have as good of a season as he did last year, obviously. But it definitely is going to be a pretty big drop-off. Now for an interesting one in Julio Jones. So this is someone who's really come on in recent weeks and had massive, massive fantasy performances. But I'm actually really low on Julio Jones this year compared to last year, because if you look at his 2015 numbers, we see 36% target share, completely insane. And then if we look at red zone targets, 32%. Now let's look at him this year. You're going to see vastly different numbers. You see a red zone target percentage of only 8%, so really, really low. They actually passed to running backs quite a bit in the red zone. And then if we look at his all passing targets, he's only at 24%. So in general, I think this Atlanta offense as a whole has definitely gotten a lot better. But I do not expect him to have even close to the same fantasy year as he had last year. And I think that maybe people are going to be overrating him a bit because of his fantasy performance the last 2 weeks, but I really would be careful here. I don't think that he's going to finish the year as a top 4 or even 5 wide receiver, so be careful here. I think he's probably overpriced on both sides still, and if he's not in an elite matchup, I'm going to be someone who might be fading him a little bit. Moving on, let's go to Amari Cooper. This is a guy who I think is definitely, there's some clear signs that he's going to improve a lot. 2015, he had only 22% target share, Michael Crabtree getting 25%. If we look at 2016, 28% target share for Cooper and only 20% for Michael Crabtree. And keep note, he only has 1 touchdown. Oops, I'm sorry. And if you look at 2015, he actually had 6 total, so he's really under his 2015 pace with less targets. I expect those TDs to go way up. I'm way high on Amari Cooper for the rest of the year. And let's just do a couple more. I'm going to look at Jarvis Landry, who is a guy I really like and have been playing a lot this season. Last year, he had 30% target share, and if we look at red zone targets, he soaked up about 30% of those as well. In 2016, his red zone target share has gone down a little bit. Now, I expect the number to go up slightly, but it does look like Ryan Tannehill and Adam Gase's offense maybe favors passing to running backs in the red zone, actually, which is kind of interesting. It's funny that Atlanta seems to be doing this, and with Kyle Shanahan and Adam Gase, a really smart offensive coordinator, is doing this as well. I'm really curious what that means. But if we look in 2016, we see 32% target share, which is really, really high. And this offense is really passing more than ever. So I think Jarvis Landry, who only had 5 touchdowns last year, I think in 2016 we probably expect similar production. It doesn't seem like it's going to really go that far up or that far down. And the last guy I want to get to is Jeremy Maclin on the Kansas City Chiefs. So nothing much has changed here, aside from the fact that they do have a new offensive coordinator because their old one went to the Eagles. But last year, Maclin had about 26% target share, which is quite a bit. I mean, that's in line with a really high-tier wide receiver. And in terms of red zone targets, he had 25%, so quite high. Look at 2016, red zone target share has gone down. It's actually gone to Kelsey way more, which is something to note. Maybe we see an improvement from Kelsey this year. And if you look at target percentage as a whole, only 21%. So what's going on here? Well, Chris Conley is a young wide receiver, seems to be developing and is eating some of those targets. They're actually passing to the running back quite a bit. I mean, I think last year Jamal Charles got injured early and maybe they weren't as into passing when Spencer Ware was in the game. He wasn't as good as a pass catcher, and they weren't passing to Sharkhandrick West as much. So that's one thing. And then another thing is they have, this guy Tyreek Hill, who's their gimmick player, who seems to be eating up actually some targets. This guy, a really quick guy. And with Ware's improved pass catching ability, now they have 3 running backs in Charles, West, and Ware who all catch passes. I think this is going to eat into Macklin and Kelsey's fantasy production a little bit, so I'd be a little lower on them this year and not expect that same output. So that was a lot of wide receivers. I hope that you guys learned a little bit, though, and see how I just assess targets and use targets to assess whether a player might be priced too low or too high on DraftKings, because a lot of their pricing is based on last year's stats. And if those last year's stats are not going to be the same as this year's stats, then you can take advantage of that. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button. And if you want to see more of my videos, please click subscribe so you can tune in more. And if you like my videos, please share on Twitter, retweet, do whatever, please. And thank you so much for watching. See you guys.